Welcome to Finish the Race, a conservative Christian podcast where we'll dive deep into the current events and social issues affecting Americans.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
In times like these, truth, principles, and solutions matter. Through God's Word, we can restore our true American values, faith, family, and country.
However, I consider my life worth nothing to me. My only aim is to finish the race and complete the task the Lord Jesus has given me, the task of testifying to the good news of God's grace.
Now, here's your host, Eric-Thompson.
Hi, welcome to another Finish the Race podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. This is our daily political podcast where we're going over some of the articles that featured on our website, finishtherace.com. And what I do on that website is I'm taking some of the trending news and then writing the stories, but I'm writing them from a Christian worldview. So I want to try to just bring out the reality of what's going on, not try to make them too emotionally driven, getting people mad or sad. But it's becoming more difficult to write articles about what our government's doing as we see them. When I say them, I'm saying those that are being called the left, the deep state, the globalist. When we know that the Democratic platform voted, but then was overridden to remove God from the platform. We know that the mayors and the governors and the Democrats in general are for abortion up to the second before birth. We know that they're promoting critical race theory. We know that they're promoting the LGBT, the trans movement. And because they're in the majority in the House and the Senate and have Joe Biden in the presidency, then what we see coming out of the Capitol is lawlessness. So the story is you're going to see a trend. Government's trying to take away gun rights. Government's trying to do this. Government's trying to do this. And it's all about the government increasing in its power. But then there's unrest in the culture, which we know about in New York and we know about in Chicago, and we know about in Los Angeles and other metro areas in Democratic states where it's lawless. There was a video yesterday, I think it was in New York, but one of the larger progressive cities where a guy got upset, so he took a hatchet into a restaurant, was busting up tables, but then come to find out a couple hours later he was back on the streets. Romans 13, Paul's writing to Christians and telling us to let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority in which God has not established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment upon themselves. But the question then that we get into as it continues in the chapter is how do we deal with a corrupt government that is elevating what's evil and attacking what is good? Because the purpose of government was that the government would punish evildoers, but they would elevate those who are following the civics, the American civics, and the rules and the expectations. So when you do that, then there's no reason to fear the police and to fear the government when they're moral. But when they're not moral, then we have the challenge of saying, Lord, it's not a challenge. I would say it's more of a moment of faith to say, Lord, I don't understand, but I know you're sovereign. I know you're working things out. So help me to have faith, help me to walk in step with your Spirit, and help me to not get wrapped up in this craziness that we're seeing in our country. So here are some of the stories that I covered today. And this one just popped up a little while ago. But a man intentionally he killed a teenager for being a Republican. Now, we remember last week when Joe Biden had his demonic-looking stage behind him when he was talking about how the nation needs to fight against the MAGA Republicans. This kind of angry speech. Well, according to a North Dakota report, early Sunday morning, a man called 911 and he admitted to the hit and run of an 18-year-old. And his motive was it was a political argument with the Republican. A guy named 41-year-old named Shannon Brandt said he was afraid 18-year-old Kyler Ellingson was part of a Republican extremist group and that he was afraid they were coming to get him. So he allegedly killed him with his car. When people live in live in fear, and they reject God, and they've been turned over, then you end up with situations like this, where God is government, government is God to them, and so they get their instructions, they get their indoctrination, and then they go out and do the unthinkable, and they murder out of fear of man, using their defense, which you could have taken that right out of the speech. I did it because I thought he was part of a Republican extremist group, and he was going to get me. If you remember, several years ago, a Bernie Sanders supporter went and shot up Steve Scalise and Republicans practicing for a congressional baseball game. And he drove all the way, I think, from Ohio over to Maryland where they're practicing, and he's just tried to kill them because they were conservatives fighting against the communism that Bernie and them were trying to advance. President Trump, on a different story, his legal team had requested a special master about 10 days ago or so to go through the documents that the FBI had taken on the raid on Mar-a-Lago. And so everybody was like, all right, great moment for the Trump team, because the judge actually approved it, which made the left very angry. Well, in a story that kind of caught me off guard, the special master, Raymond Deary, during their first hearing in front of the judge, so he was a special master, he blasted Trump's lawyers, telling them, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. And what happened is Deary said, prove to me that the documents, what proof do you have, Trump team, that the documents that were seized were declassified? And he kept pushing Trump's lawyers. When were they declassified? How were they declassified? And they said, well, we can't really tell you that because, and they didn't really have a good answer. So in other words, what he heard was, we want you to give back the documents that as many documents as possible, but we're not going to try to explain to you why you should. And so with a lot of people watching in the courtroom from online, he said, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't not tell me why these have been declassified, which means then President Trump can have them. So you can't have me do this without providing the proof that I should do this for you. Trump had argued that the 11,000 documents taken from Mar-a-Lago were rightfully in his possession, including 100 bearing classification markings. But Deary kind of fought back against the Trump lawyers who were trying to resist his request for proof that Trump had declassified the 100 that they're saying were top secret. So that was a story that I was waiting to get more information on, but you can see it. But it's I think it's a bad start to this special master's efforts to try to help the Trump team and President Trump in general to get back the documents and to start to support a possible defense that he's going to have to give by the Department of Justice if they bring charges. So we have a man killing a teenager because he was scared of him, because Biden's team had told him that's the kind of person you should be scared of, and then we have the Trump's team kind of blowing it today. And then there was a story that came out. Ron DeSantis, the conservative, popular governor of Florida, had chartered 2 planes and he flew illegal aliens up to Martha's Vineyard. Right? And everybody freaked out and they were all upset. And why would you do that? And before they got on the planes, the illegal aliens had signed documents saying, okay, yeah, I know what's going on. I know why I'm going, where I'm going, and I'm choosing this on my own volition. So Martha's Vineyard's like, oh, we can't deal with these 30 people. And so they immediately, within 24 hours, got them over to Cape Cod to a military base. They had no tolerance for illegal immigrants, even though they were a sanctuary city. Well, of course, immediately, some far-left whack job legal group got a handful of them, and now they're suing the governor, saying he violated the illegal aliens who are not citizens. So they do not have the full constitutional rights. But they're claiming that their 4th and 14th Amendment rights were violated because they were flown up to Martha's Vineyard. This is what lawless people do. Because what they've been able to do is they get 2 million 2 million illegal alien migrants were caught by the Border Patrol in this last fiscal year, October to October. 2 million. That does not include the ones that were not caught and no one knows anything about. And this is part of the plan, because while we're going through all this story and there's all this lawsuits here and putting people on buses, they're pouring in 150,000 a day. I mean, they're just pouring in the country. Over 2 million. I think it was a little short of 2 million when this article came out. And this is the question that we who love liberty and want law and order, we have to deal with the question: what's the main purpose if we get control of the Congress and the presidency? What would be the main goal? And to me, The main goal is to simply deconstruct the federal government. We can't make it bigger, make it more powerful, try to get, you know what? Day one, cutting budgets 25% across the board. Hey, House, I want you to defund. We're going to close the Department of Education. We're going to close land management. We're going to close all these departments. We're going to send everything back to the states. Going to defund. We're going to take the IRS down to the minimum. If it was up to me, we would do a flat tax. But there has to be a heavy reduction in the size and scope of the federal government because it's way out of control. And when there's based off of the Harvard studies and all this information last 15, 20 years, there's probably around 35 to 40 million illegal aliens in the United States now. And what's the problem with that? Well, as they pour in, then what happens is countries like Venezuela, Breitbart's reporting, they're emptying out their prisons, and as long as the people, the criminals agree to enter the United States and go into our country and live. Now, since we're not asking for verification, there's no testing, it's a great deal for them because, so you're going to let me out of jail and I get to walk across the border where they're letting everybody in. Deal. Well, how many people do you think have come across the border from Venezuela, El Salvador, and these nations? How many criminals do you think we have in the United States? Out of 30 million, 100,000, 200,000? There's been millions of crimes committed by illegal aliens the last couple generations. And the amount of people pouring in, including now prisons from Venezuela that are emptied into our country, they're just flooding the nation. There's a report out. Biden welcomes 3 migrants for every 4 U.S. births. So many people are coming in, it's almost equating the U.S. births. So you have mano a mano. That's part of the plan. It's infuriating for me because the Bible says that a man who doesn't take care of his family, doesn't protect and provide for his family, is worse than an unbeliever. Well, what father would leave his doors open to his house and his car windows down, keys in the ignition, so strangers could just pour through the house, eat the food, sleep, take the car, hurt the children, hurt the wife, terrorize the neighborhood? Well, that's what's happening on our border. Criminals are pouring in. 78 migrants in this recent group in 2022. There were 78 migrants on the terror watch list. That's tripled over the last 4 years. So we have people coming in on the terror watch list. We have people that are coming straight out of prisons right into our country, and they're just flooding our country. And then when they get money, the foreign nationals will then wire the money back home, take money out of our economy and send the money back to their families back home until they can get them across the border and get them in. The whole time, the Democrats are pushing for amnesty. A few other stories here, and then we'll be done. But before I move on, I did want to remind you that I'm talking to a lot of people that are struggling financially, and I found a great way to save around $900 a year by simply switching off of the major cell phone carriers, leaving AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, or Sprint, heading over to a company, a U.S.-based company called Pure Talk USA. This is what happened. I've been with them coming up on 2 years now. You go to this website, getpuretalk.com, getpuretalk.com. You choose a plan that's right for you. You don't have to buy new phones. You don't have to get new phone numbers. You don't have to do anything except choose a plan that's right for you. If you want to keep your same equipment, just order the free SIM cards on the homepage. And when you check out, you put in the promo code. It's 3 letters, FLS, for liberty's sake. 3 letters, FLS will get you 50% off your first month. So you're getting 50% off your first Pure Talk bill, which is going to be about 50% of what you've been paying. And that's why I only pay $74 a month for 2 iPhones on the plan. So head over to getpuretalk.com, choose the plan, order the free SIM cards, use the promo code FLS at checkout. SIM cards are on the way. Once you put them in your phone, here's what's great. You turn on your phones, you're going to be on the exact same 5G network you were on with the other carrier. Same tower, but for about half the cost. I believe the customer service is better, U.S.-based customer service in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And if you go over on your data, they don't charge you. That's why my bill's the same every month, even if I go over. So it's win-win-win. And lastly, they don't support causes that you and I would disagree with. So again, check them out. GetPureTalk.com. Promo code FLS at checkout to get 50% off your first month. And say the average family saving $900 a year. Okay, here are a few more articles. Biggest coyote ever. Law professor rips Biden for transporting illegal aliens around the U.S. While the left is attacking Governor Abbott and Governor DeSantis, this law professor reminds them there's nothing illegal about what they're doing. And by the way, if you want to talk about the biggest coyote ever, look at what Joe Biden's been doing since pretty much after taking over. DHS and Homeland Security has been sticking illegals on planes and flying them to states around the country without telling anybody. In the middle of the night, 4 o'clock in the morning, dropping them off with no resources. So I wrote about that. Biggest coyote ever. Dick Heller, who won the case that Scalia is kind of famous for in Thomas, he won another case against the Washington, D.C. government, this time about magazine sizes. He's the reason why we can still carry handguns, because Supreme Court ruled 5-4 that when Heller brought the case about not being able to carry the handgun legally in Washington, D.C., it only made it by 1 vote, but he won again. So I have that. Gun rights activist Heller scores another victory. Mitch McConnell did a big U-turn. He was pulling money from Blake Masters and was starting to kind of give up on the Senate in the midterms. Now I put red wave. Mitch McConnell does U-turn. Now he says the Senate majority is in reach. The judge upholds DeSantis' decision to suspend a prosecutor who won't enforce his abortion ban in Florida. The judge said, that's fine. You can do that. Yeah, there's actually a prosecutor that said, I am not going to do what I'm ordered to do by the chief executive officer of Florida. So DeSantis said, well, then you are suspended and I'm replacing you. And he said, well, then I'll file a lawsuit. Well, the judge said, too bad. DeSantis has the authority. You cannot not do your job and prosecute. Article about Christianity. Christianity is quickly becoming the minority religion in America. A whistleblower alleged to Jim Jordan that the FBI schemed to actually distort January 6 cases. That's an interesting one. They basically took a charge and funneled it out to a bunch of different offices, and they all opened up pseudo cases, which made it look like there were dozens and dozens of investigations on each case, even though it was all being done by the main office. A whistleblower came and told Jim Jordan about that. And lastly, Twitter has been going nuts over the fact that Joe Biden said the pandemic is over. Well, the left's freaking out because they're like, oh, you can't do that because that is the mechanism we're using to give the student debt relief because of COVID and all the lockdowns and the pandemic. And so he's getting beat up on both sides, Biden is. And Joe's also getting hit on the fact that he said in his interview with 60 Minutes, yeah, so inflation, yeah, it was up, but just an inch. What's the big deal? So what, inflation went up a little bit. What's a big deal, Joe? Because people are struggling to keep their lights on. So those are some of the main articles. Disconnected Joe Biden, quote, inflation rate month to month was up an inch, hardly at all, unquote. Twitter implodes following Biden's announcement. Pandemic is over. Whistleblower alleges FBI scheme to distort January 6 cases. So go over there. We got a lot of stories up here from Trump and about Harris and about the possibility that we won't know the midterm elections again on election day. Be nice if they could fix that. So again, check out everything at finishtherace.com. Head over to getpuretalk.com if you want to save a bunch of money on your cell phone service. And don't forget, Mike Lindell has huge sales going on over at MyPillow. Huge sales on towels, on blankets, on pillows. Support Mike Lindell. You know they took his cell phone and the FBI is after him too. So head over to mypillow.com/FLS, just like with the promo code for Get Pure Talk. mypillow.com/FLS. That'll get you 66% or more off on a lot of his deals. You're supporting Mike. You're supporting us over here at Finish the Race, as we're all fighting the good fight. So thank you for listening. Please share this with your friends and family. If you have any questions, email me at eric@finishtherace.com, and you guys have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Finish the Race. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
My friends and I love it.
It's drastically changed my life.
For more information and updates, please visit finishtherace.com. To get in touch with others in our community, please visit megabook.com. We thank you once again for tuning in. Have a blessed day.